Well, this is Niswander. I'm here at the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops National Conference taking place this year at the L.A. Trade Tech College. I'm here with Kali Akuno from Cooperation Jackson. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
And tell me a little bit about your background first, and then we'll talk about Cooperation Jackson.
Well, I mean, for most of your viewers, there may be a good number of you in the audience who know me. I'm originally from Los Angeles, born and primarily raised here. My family was on the move at different points in time, but went to Linwood High School.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, graduated class in 1990. And lived most of my, kind of formative years in Linwood and in Watts. I was born in Watts on Corrosives Avenue. I know the place well. I haven't really lived here since graduating from high school. But family's still here and here often, at least once a year, typically, and more. And still very much interested in the social movements here and the developments here. But even then, I knew my calling was going to be in making a return back to the South. As both sides of my family were part of that kind of great migration wave here. One side of the family during the Great Depression, the other side right after World War II.
Yeah.
And then the generations, my parents' generations, them coming of age, being born in the 40s after the war. And then part of the social movements, here in Los Angeles in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yep.
And I'm a child of that kind of continuing thread that kind of took place here in L.A. And that consciousness really has shaped, the experience I had here in the 70s and 80s. Not only shaped who I am, but it's still shaping the work that I do.
So now you're in Jackson, Mississippi. What does your work consist of right now?
Well, as I put it, I'm in one part of a small project to take over the city of Jackson.
Oh wow! How's that?
I mean, that's our aim and objective. We don't hide from that. We're trying to radically transform the city socially, politically, economically. I spend most of my time, but not all of my time, concentrated primarily in one area, which Cooperation Jackson is grounded in, and that is building up the solidarity economy and trying to, in the course of that building up, transform our system to one of economic democracy.
Excellent.
To lay a material foundation that will benefit the vast majority of working people and the vast majority of people who are now excluded. So most of my work, entails helping other working class people self-organize and develop worker cooperatives. So that is kind of the day-to-day work in different forms and facets. Some of my work as kind of the director of one division of the work is trying to raise funds, trying to train people in how to actually own and operate an operation, a business. So it's grinding, grueling work, sometimes not that rewarding, but at the end of the day, I think we're making some strides at actually creating an economy in a local economy where there's substantial worker control over the economy. And we aim over the course of the next years and decades to not only scale that up to make sure that the vast majority of the economy is in worker direct control, but that we displace the exploitative systems that exist around us and replace those with life-affirming systems.
That's fantastic, because that's one of the things that attracted me to the movement, was the fact that it literally forces a mindset to care about people before everything else.
Right.
Yeah, and you'll figure everything else out, and then people, as you know, are complicated as it is, but we have to start there, because it just should be common sense. How did we ever get ourselves to thinking that material things, money and profits, are more important than people is beyond me. But
we were kind of forced into that relationship.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, many of us were I would say the vast majority of us were forced into that relationship, either from
Yes.
the colonization of this continent.
That's right.
The stealing of labor from folks from Africa, the stealing of labor from here.
Yes.
The
poor folks too.
And poor folks are going to bring them up. So it's not like we entered into this system, most of us willingly. We're kind of dragged along, forced along.
Yep.
But we have to exercise our own agency to change it, and we have to do it with some urgency.
Yes.
Because this system, the capitalist system, is destroying our planet.
That's
and
right.
We need to make some serious course correction, and immediately, if we're expecting complex life on this planet to continue, namely our own.
That's absolutely right. So in working, are you focused primarily just on the city of Jackson, or in the state?
At this stage,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But we are very intentional and deliberate at every stage in our work of reaching out to folks all over the country to share our particular experience and to really try to politicize the movement.
That's right.
Because we think that there is a fairly vibrant cooperative movement that actually exists in this country.
Yes.
But I think a lot of it is falling into this notion that business is supposed to be a neutral kind of activity, and you don't get involved in politics. And we're here to say, no, we have to take a partisan position, and we have to, if we're going to orient these businesses and not have them become just new vehicles of capital accumulation, if they're actually really going to serve working people, then they have to have a working class orientation and working class politics. So that's a particular thing that Cooperation Jackson has been trying to add to the movement as we grow and struggle. And one of the things we always say, people is like, well, what can we do to best help you? And the thing, at the end of the day, we need a strong cooperative movement, a radical movement here in Los Angeles.
I totally agree.
That would give us ultimately the most support, because we can't exist in like a small little progressive isolated bubble. It's too easy to kind of hem in, constrain, and ultimately eliminate if there's no other forces that we can relate to, do business with, and are really pushing for another way of doing business and another way of organizing the world.
Well, how about you and I try to find a way to create a coalition between Jackson and Los Angeles?
Done.
Because we're going to talk about this on the show in the studio. We're next in the studio. So this is going to be a clip you're going to watch right here. We want to do this in actual reality, not just talk about it. So let's keep that channel open on Skype and on Zoom and email, and let's figure out what we can do. Because it is political.
Right.
I tell people I don't like politics, but you know what I like even less? Being ignorant and inactive when it comes to political stuff that's connected to everybody's day-to-day life.
Right.
And we're one big family. And this
one small little planet. Yeah,
that's
we got
right.
to share with each other. Yeah.
And you're right, capitalism, I think we need to have a real honest critique of capitalism. Because it is true, yes, there was a short period of time where boats got lifted. And there is amazing technology that has come out of this period of time. But at the same time, that technology also includes, as you mentioned, technology where we can now destroy the surface of the planet in a very short period of time. That's why people keep talking about the nuclear bombs.
Right.
And also, we've already created technology that's polluted the land, the water, the air. The air. And I grew up in Middle America. And as a kid, I remember looking at the lakes and the rivers and the streams. Because I lived in a lot of rural areas and small towns. My father was a minister, so that's where he wanted to go. And I already saw the pollution already existing there. And I remember looking at this brown water, and looking at the trees and all that around it. And thinking, not that long ago, this must have been just absolutely pristine and
Clear and
beautiful.
pristine, yeah, that's right.
And so I knew then, as a kid, something's wrong here.
Yeah, I think we've all known that for a while. But there's this kind of notion that the Earth has, inexhaustible resources when it doesn't.
That's right.
And I think there's also been a fostering of this notion that, hey, either technology is going to solve all of our problems, it'll, suck all the carbon out of the air when we need to, or, we'll just come up with some new techno fix. And that's not going to happen.
No.
And we shouldn't allow it to happen, in part because, we got to think of who owns and controls these technologies.
That's right.
Because they can choose to clean your neighborhood, but not choose to clean mine.
That's right. That's right.
So one of the things that we fight for is we're not against technology, but it needs to be both appropriately applied, but also more democratically owned and controlled.
Exactly.
And we think if it's done that way, there'll be far less pollution because we'll all be mindful. Hey, I don't want toxic waste in my backyard, and I'm sure you don't want it in yours either.
That's right.
So there's a lot that we have to work for in this regard in terms of thinking about change and acting through it. I think in the next coming years and decades. Again, I say, we got to look at it that the time is short. We don't have forever and a day to deal with the climate crisis and the overall social crisis that it's already created. I don't think I have to your audience here in California. I'm sure most people are very consciously and painfully aware of the long-term drought the state is now suffering.
Yep.
The loss of trees, the loss of biomass, and the whole ecologies, and we had 2 or 3 years now of the worst forest fires in California
and
history.
record high temperatures.
Right.
Month after month after month.
Yeah, so, the clarion call should be here already. Now we have to act on and develop a program collectively to deal with it.
Yeah, and I think that we need to have public ownership and collectively speaking of like the solar and the wind.
Absolutely.
And this is being proposed already in the UK with their manifesto,
right.
Labour Party's manifesto, and community gardens, community land trusts. There's so many different things that are already in existence out there. If we can implement them here in our own country, but we have got to politicize this, because think about it, people, we don't even have single payer health care. Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Israel, all these countries have a government administrated program, and we don't have one.
Right.
And yet we do have one, just not everybody gets access to it.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah. And so, Congress has a great one.
They do.
We should get the same treatment that they get.
That's right, exactly. But to your point of the politicization, we shouldn't be afraid of that.
Right.
We got the New Deal based on fear. When FDR said, you have nothing to fear but fear itself, he said that, by the way, in fear. He knew the real threats that were there for the, as he called, the royal elitists. He was one of them. So, but we need to build a movement. We need to build movements. Even Bernie Sanders talks about that. And then we need to address the major issues as millions of people coming together. It's not going to work. You got 500 people there. And so, one of the things that's frustrating to me, Kali, is that I moved back out here 10 years ago, and I went to a climate rally. I think was this after Occupy or before? And there were 500 people in City Hall. And I remember thinking, like,
it's not going to cut it.
500 people in the city of 10 million. Yeah. Henry Waxman is really impressed standing here. He had that look on his face, like, 500 people. And you need to have the representation of many, many people to make that impact happen. So that's why we have to build multiple movements. And we have to find common ground to simplify the message, but still be as
and to build confidence.
Right.
We have to build confidence. I think there's a truth that, sad truth that most folks, as the saying goes, most folks find it easier to envision the end of civilization, the end of the world, than they envision, the end of capitalism.
That's right.
And we have to change that.
That's right.
And I think part of that is confidence in our own abilities and a clear vision of the future. And I think we need to really have an honest assessment of the experiences from the 19th and 20th century that we're trying to build, egalitarian, utopian systems where they went wrong, and not look at it as a hindrance, but look at it, that's some rich material for us to learn from, actually.
That's right.
And not be afraid, but to take courage of millions of people, in many different places try to, take their destiny in their own hands and oftentimes fell short. But let's really analyze why and really interrogate, the capitalist system and imperialism never stopped, or never allowed them to, fully experiment on their own terms. That doesn't negate the internal contradictions of every society has. But we got to put all these things in context, and one thing we do, I think now all clearly know, I hope, understand is that us continuing with this system and this operation, way of operating, way of running society, it's going to kill us all.
That's right, exactly. And we need to really use that kind of, like we were saying earlier, urgency. If my backyard isn't flooded, if there isn't like, oil coming through my, or whatever it is, like in Flint,
right.
Coming through the water, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. And we need the sense of urgency, like, well, it doesn't matter what appears right now, it matters what could happen.
And look at what's happening right now with Hurricane Florence in North Carolina.
Yeah, I know.
Where they rejected climate science as a means of doing any evaluation of planning. And now, they're going to be left with just tons of toxic sludge, from the pig farms and the nuclear facilities that they have and all this other kind of waste. Folks are going to be dealing with that for decades to come now, because a few boneheaded folks in their legislature decided, they were going to go with some ultra-right Christian libertarian narrative of the world that rejects the actual facts that are in front of you, and even deny people from hearing or learning about, those facts. Well, that comes at a cost. Now North Carolina is going to be paying for it, and what I hope is, as an illustration, that folks now from this experience, as terrible as it was and is, will learn and then spread that knowledge to other folks. Like, hey, you got to take this serious. Climate change is here. It's not something that's in the future. It's happening now, and it's having these impacts.
We need to find ways to work together. So
we have to. Yeah, we have to, absolutely. So I'm looking for more from more, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Kali, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Niswander, and you're watching the Nowman Show. I'm here with Kali Akuno from Cooperation, Jackson.
For the most part, we are only as good as our best party's worst policy. So the people need to be mad.
Right.
What do you see the Green Party's role is in creating these coalitions?
The strategic choice, I think, for progressives is, are you going to waste your time trying the failed experiment of saving the Democrats? Or are you going to work for electoral reform like proportional representation?
I think that we should not reform it. We should change the name to the non-democratic party.
It seems to me the civil rights movement must now begin to organize for the guaranteed income.
I mean, the wealth disparity in this country is absolutely ridiculous. The average CEO makes 475 times the average worker. And Adam Smith never foresaw this, by the way.
California can do what every other democracy does, and that's have universal single-payer health care. It's going to save, they've estimated it's going to save like $3 trillion over 10 years. And,
oh my gosh.
And if we
Listen
do it
to
here,
that, $3 trillion. That's how many zeros?
That's a lot of zeros.
Well, this is Niswander. I'm in part of Tent City here at Occupy LA by City Hall, downtown Los Angeles. Here you can see a lot of posters, signs. There's all sorts of booths set up too. There's a food booth serving free food with a long line. I see supplies, donations, even a bookstore right here. So if you want to read a book, you can pick up a book here, or two, or three.
You just keep doing it. It sends a real message, I think, that people are in the streets, because it's the only other way to get your voice heard if you don't play the game the way it's been played, with lobbyists, congressmen who are too much influenced by lobbyists, corporate money that influences the politicians. This is really the only alternative, so don't let them convince you to come inside, put on a suit, and hire a lobbyist. That's how you lose. This is how you win. So my congratulations to you. All modern societies that work, I'm thinking of governments in Europe that function more smoothly than ours, that take care of those citizens, they're a hybrid of capitalism and socialism. Obviously America is also. We are full of socialist entities in this country. Even the tea baggers don't want to get rid of Social Security. They want their Medicare. They want their farm subsidies. They want their mortgages through the government. The bankers, they certainly take more handouts than anybody. But it has to be done in a fair way, and it has to be done in a way that works for everybody.
I know we're streaming live right now, so I'm talking to folk right now who are not here. Folk who are not here right now, but know that they're catching hell. Know that they can't find a job. Know that they can't afford their student loans. Know that they're living back home with their mom and them. Know that they don't have access to health care, etc., etc., etc. If you have a legitimate grievance, this is where you need to be. And I'm convinced that if we keep making enough noise, somebody's got to start asking questions about what does matter to us. The worst thing you can do to a human being is to make him or her feel invisible, to make them feel disposable, to make them feel like they're a calculation or they are an afterthought. And there's too much of that in this country. The humanity of too many people is being contested every day. What we are fighting against is the contestation of the humanity of too many Americans of all races, colors, creeds, etc.
I saw the same thing in New York, Occupy Boston, as well as Occupy LA, that focuses on corporate greed. It talks about individual liberty, it talks about social justice, it talks about democratic accountability, especially the 1% who own 40% of the wealth.
You know, our mayor in the business economic development aspects of our city, see this also as just a really no-brainer way to build businesses that are embedded in the community, that are going to stay and actually serve and function.
We often hear the phrase that there's a silver tsunami about to happen where millions of baby boomers will retire and sell their businesses. I was part of a discussion earlier where they say we can say that, but it's not as rosy an outlook as we're just going to have millions of businesses to choose from. Many of them will be, the ones that we will probably be able to address will probably be more stressed businesses, but there is at least a trend for businesses that will be changing hands and we can potentially acquire and convert into worker cooperatives. Labor has an opening to address not just income inequality, but also wealth inequality by fine-tuning this strategy. This massive generational turnover presents an opportunity for the labor movement to shift significant ownership and control to working people, while attaining and keeping union membership for the workforce involved.
Hello, this is Niswander, and I am at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives National Conference that is taking place in 2018 at the LA Trade Tech College in downtown, or south downtown LA. I'm here with Matt Cropp from
Burlington, Vermont. I work for the Vermont Employee Ownership Center, and we do work around both the conversion of businesses into employee-owned structures. It's really that question of structure, right? When there's a lot of discourse around what does socially responsible business look like, or impact investing, social enterprise, and a lot of that kind of focuses on what is being done. But doesn't sort of necessarily get into this deeper question of how does it change people's relationship to wealth and the structure of wealth and power, right? So it's okay, we could be doing something with putting solar panels on a roof, but if it's a company that's taking the profit from that and concentrating it in a time when wealth inequality is also already kind of such a huge problem, that's a mixed bag. That's not a universally positive outcome. Whereas if you say have a worker cooperative that's installing the solar panels and distributing the profits amongst all of its workforce, on a fairly equitable basis, right? So suddenly that's changing people's lives. And someone who might have been making $12 an hour and barely getting by is able to make instead $18 an hour and be able to actually meet their needs a lot better and have a say in how the work is organized. That's a potentially transformative experience. So my day job is with the Vermont Employee Ownership Center, and then the investment club is sort of an organizing project. Yes, but the Employee Ownership Center, the Bernie Sanders was involved in getting some of the early funding for that, and actually, so we have a small revolving loan fund that we can sort of make loans to groups of employees who are trying to buy out their businesses, and so he was able to secure that money when he was in Congress, and so he's definitely been certainly a champion of employee ownership kind of work as a form of empowerment and an economic development strategy for many years. So
you're with
Liz Anderson.
And Liz, where are you from?
I'm from Chicago, and I work with the North American Students of Cooperation.
Awesome, that's fantastic.
So I'm the Director of Education, so I help plan our annual conference, similar to this, but we focus on student housing co-ops specifically group equity housing co-ops.
That's so. In other words, instead of providing, let's say, campus-run or corporate-owned housing, so you're focusing on cooperatively owned housing for students.
Yes, yeah. So these are independently operating. Sometimes they have agreements with the university, sometimes not. So sometimes they just happen to mostly serve students, and sometimes they're entirely students. But either way, that's owned by the membership and run democratically.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, how many projects do you have right now in Chicago?
So we're not just we are based in Chicago, but our membership is all over North America, so the United States and Canada. We have about 50 members, and we're representing about 5,000 students.
Oh, that's fantastic. How long have you been doing this?
Almost a year and a half. Yep.
Wow, that's a lot in just 1 year's time.
Oh, well, I didn't start it. We're turning 50 this year, actually. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary this November.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize. See, a lot of people don't even know that these things are going on, and that's the purpose of our show, is to let you know that this is going on, that there are such things as entities that are owned by a collective group of people and not just by corporate interests or even necessarily the public sector. Arizmendi, what is that for those who may not know exactly what that is?
Arizmendi is the shortened version of a priest from Spain, post-Civil War, post-Spanish Civil War, Father Jose Arizmendi Arrieta. So we shortened it for ease of saying and for marketing value.
Yeah.
And so we he had started the Mondragon Collectives to do job creation and business growth in the Basque region of Spain after the Spanish Civil War. He helped jumpstart the largest network of cooperatives in the world, and you could still look them up. And it was an homage to him to name the bakeries Arizmendi. We would not have started without the help of the Cheese Board Collective in Berkeley, who's been around for 51 years.
Oh, wow.
And we went to the Cheese Board in the mid-90s and said, you're doing a great job. Would you be interested in helping support other bakeries grow here as cooperatives, worker-owned cooperatives? And the Cheese Boards do what folks technically do not do in the United States, which is they put up the money, they shared the recipes, and they trained our workers for our first bakery. So without that gift, we would have not started the Arizmendi Network. So we're part of a family. We have the Cheese Board and 5 Arizmendi bakeries, and now we're branching on to some businesses that Ashley can talk about.
Oh, wow. What are the businesses you're branching out into?
Yeah, we have a new sector, so we're now up to 9 cooperatives within our association.
Wow.
One of which is what we call the Development and Support Cooperative, which Sue and I do some work for, helping support all of the businesses. And then the next 2 newest ones are in a construction sector, so we've branched out to a completely different field and have a small construction cooperative doing general contracting work in the Bay Area, and also a landscape design build cooperative. The newest 2 cooperatives started in the last about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but the first Arizmendi bakery started 21 years ago.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long ago. Yeah. And check out the movie Shift Change if you want to learn and see more about Arizmendi in action. Are you in that film?
No.
Oh, you're not?
No, but close.
But
no.
friends of ours at the Valencia shop in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have 2 shops in San Francisco.
So let's see, how many shops do you have now? I know there's one in Oakland and 2 in San Francisco.
There's the Cheese Board. The first Arizmendi was Lakeshore in Oakland. The second one was 9th Avenue in San Francisco and the Avenues. The third one's Emeryville on 43rd. And the 4th one was San Rafael on 4th Street, downtown San Rafael. And the 5th Arizmendi was Valencia shop on Valencia in San Francisco.
This is a very successful cooperative organization of collaborations and just a family, right? You call it a family.
It's a family. I call it a family.
Absolutely.
That's right.
See, it is growing, folks, and it's democracy for we the people, and that's what we need to build towards. Thank you so much for sharing that information today.
Thank you.
Let's expand the network.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
My pleasure.